Hello, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Kevin Vita with ITS America, and I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, which is the third and final session in a three-part series where the three V2X Accelerator grant sites are sharing updates on their projects. In today's session, we'll be hearing from the Texas A&M Transportation Institute on the project that they are leading called Transforming Roads, Unleashing Smart Technologies, or TRUST. On the next slide, I want to go over a couple of logistical items for your awareness. Today's webinar is being recorded, and a copy of the recording will be posted to the ITS America website in the very near future. We also have enabled closed captions for this session, and you can choose to turn them on by using the closed captioning icon, which you will find at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Finally, we do encourage you to provide any questions you have for our presenters within the Q&A pod instead of in the chat. We may not have time to address all of your questions at the end of today's presentations, but we will capture them for potential future follow-up with our presenters. This next slide here is the quick disclaimer. This presentation was created and is being presented by the Texas A&M Transportation Institute. The views and opinions expressed in this presentation are the presenters and do not necessarily reflect those of the U.S. Department of Transportation. The contents do not necessarily reflect the official policy of the USDOT. The U.S. government does not endorse products or manufacturers. Trademarks or manufacturers' names appear in this presentation only because they are considered essential to the objective of the presentation. They are included for informational purposes only and are not intended to reflect a preference, approval, or endorsement of any one product or entity. Except for the statutes and regulations cited, the contents of this presentation do not have the force and effect of law and are not meant to bind the states or the public in any way. This presentation is intended only to provide information regarding existing requirements under the law or agency policies. Now, with that out of the way, I will turn things over to Bob Bridia, who is a senior research scientist and the division head for system operations and technologies with the Texas A&M Transportation Institute.
Thanks, Kevin, and welcome everybody. I appreciate you having me in here today. What you see on the agenda, or what you see on the screen, is an agenda for today. I want to talk a little bit about just where we are with V2X. I'm sure many of you, if you've been through the other webinars, already have a good grasp on that, but just a couple slides to go over that. Then talk a little bit about the national perspective. Why is it important? Then we'll get into our project and really what's going on, delving into our use cases and what's going to make us successful. And then we'll finish up with the Q&A, obviously. So in terms of vehicle to everything, I always like to start off the slide decks that I do with a quick explanation. V2X is, a communications technology. It really allows information to be exchanged between infrastructure, road users, and vehicles. Purpose is to enhance safety, mobility, and efficiency. Overall, the benefits that can be gained include helping to prevent crashes, reduce congestion, improve traffic flow, those sorts of things. V2X is not a new concept. It's not a new technology. It's an emerging technology. The difference is that emergent means that it's really coming to the forefront currently, even though it has been around in some way, shape, or form for more than 20 years with different pilots and early deployments taking place. So those types of technologies and the information that we've learned before, along with the advancements in the different wireless technologies, the wireless space, AI, artificial intelligence, and automation, it's all coming together to help make this a much more feasible implementation to put together on the transportation system to reduce crashes, increase mobility, and overall gain additional benefits from the investments that have been made. So I do want to cover one slide quickly. How is V2X different than autonomous vehicles? Autonomous vehicles rely primarily on the sensors and the camera systems that are internal to the vehicle only. They do not receive, in most cases, information from the outside world other than what they can sense. V2X, as we know and just covered, enables communication between vehicles and the environment and even the users. So V2X can support that cooperative driving while the AVs focus on making their decisions independently. In the future, we do think that V2X can enhance safety and awareness for autonomous vehicles, in addition to the information that autonomous vehicles are gathering by themselves. But right now, connected is not the same as self-driving. So where are we on the current status of V2X? Well, I think, as we all know, we have equipment that can be put on the side of the road and that will send information out into the air. We have standards by which that information sends out so that we know that a particular message has this component and that component and is going to be broadcast the same all over the nation. The challenge is that we have very few vehicles, except for a couple of high-end vehicles, that can receive any of this information. And we can't receive any of it on cell phones directly because there's no V2X chip in any phone sold in the US. So that makes it a little challenging. And we've always been in kind of this space recently where, the automobile manufacturers are saying that, well, you get more stuff on the side of the road and we'll put it into the vehicles, and the IOOs are saying, well, you could put more stuff in vehicles and we'll get stuff on the side of the road. So in reality, this project is a great, and the other two grantees as well, is a great leap across that gap, trying to be collaborative with both sides of the equation, putting this stuff out there, putting together the national blue book or handbook for how this can take place, and without the substantial federal subsidies, and really bring this into the reality of what we're trying to do on the transportation system. So overall, the initiative goals, I'm sure you've seen this in the other webinars, but deploy, operate, and showcase. I don't know why the one isn't showing up. That's weird. Anyhow, deploy, operate, and showcase these deployments, inform and educate the ITS community, and then support the development of essentially documentation, the national handbook or blueprint for how this takes place. You've probably seen this slide as well. These are the three grantees. You've already heard, if you were on the previous webinars, you've already heard from Utah DOT and our Maricopa County. And so our colleagues there are doing amazing things as well. Texas A&M Transportation Institute, I do want to emphasize, we are not an IOO. We are a research arm of the Texas A&M University system and also a state agency, but we do not control any or operate any portion of the roadway. So our capabilities in things focus more on collaboration with all of the stakeholders, all of the IOOs that we do have on our project, because we can't be on their roadways and implement equipment and all of those types of things without their permission. You've also probably seen this slide. This is a very fast project. It's a total of 30 months, and honestly, it cannot be done in a linear fashion. You can't do all your documentation and then all your procurement and then all your installation and those types of things. You have to be doing most of these things in a overlap type of situation. So we've been working on our documentation just like our colleagues in the other sites, and there's a significant amount of documentation, but all of that will help to support, obviously, this national handbook as to how to do this. At the 18-month point, which for us is in March 2026, there's a phase 1, phase 2 check gate. So USDOT comes in and really looks at everything that we've done and analyzes it according to the system documentation, making sure that we've checked all the boxes that we're supposed to have checked and have done all the things that we're supposed to have done, so that we can move forward into the operation and evaluation phase. And then a very key part of this contract is you are contractually obligated for 5 years after the 30 months to continue to operate and maintain these systems. So when I said that TTI is not an IOO, that's really what one of the big challenges for us is that 5-year post-deployment operate and maintain aspects, is we don't control anything on the system. So in the big picture of things, V2X is important because it's all about traveler information, trusted traveler information. V2X helps us to communicate traveler information, whether that's for safety benefit or mobility benefit or efficiency of our trip or anything else. It's all traveler information, but it has to be trusted in order for people to use it. So we've gotten to the point in the industry now where we have, signs on the side of the road and dynamic message signs and portable changeable message signs. We send out emails to people. There are websites, and yet still some people don't believe the information that's out there because, we have signs that say road work ahead, and, there's no activity that's going on for weeks at a time. So we do really have to focus on the trusted component of this information and make sure that we're adhering to that. So I like this slide because it basically takes an intersection and it shows you all of the different or many of the different user perspectives that exist in this. So I'll go through very quickly. I don't want to read everything here, but for a motorcyclist, they have it's a different experience riding a motorcycle. I know I've crashed one. So lost traction on some gravel, those types of things. They have a different level of awareness. They have different things that they're looking for, but they're an integral part of the intersection system and users that we need to think about. A regular pedestrian, maybe they feel unsafe crossing the street, or but maybe there's no traffic signal there, and those types of things. So vulnerable road user alerts, left turn conflict warnings, all of that can help the pedestrian user. Emergency vehicles, we all know that emergency vehicles need to get to the folks that they're trying to help just as quickly as possible. But they have to be careful as well so that they don't get involved in a crash or cause a crash or anything like that. So there are use cases in the V2X world that help emergency responders get to their need point faster. Construction workers, right? We've all gone through construction zones, seen people on the side of the road, probably have seen or heard about some of the challenges with that, speeding vehicles, some of the safety concerns. So there's all kinds of V2X applications that can exist to help those folks as well. Same with trucking, okay, and then same with vulnerable road users, the elderly, the folks that are in wheelchairs, that maybe blind or hearing disabled or any of those types of things. So basically we get all the way through that. Again, that's not every population that uses an intersection, but it's just an example of the different user perspectives that we have to be aware of as we're working to outfit all of these technologies onto the roadway and figuring out how to get the right information to the right people at the right time. So I won't read you the long and boring, statements. And any good project has to have a vision and a mission statement. I will simply show what's in yellow. The vision, obviously, of what we're trying to do, and really what all the sites are trying to do, is to make every trip safer, smarter, and more efficient by giving you V2X traveler information. And the overall mission for not only our project, but again, the others, is really to set the standards for how connectivity and connected transportation systems will continue to transform our experiences moving forward. So in one phrase, I wanted to give you just what our approach is. So our approach is build foundational, think aspirational. You'll see what I mean, hopefully a little bit later on in the presentation. But basically what I'm talking about is in phase one of the project, we're building out the critical and core components of what we're trying to create. So we have 15 different use cases. I'll start diving into those shortly. But then in phase two, we want to be able to expand. Phase two is operate and maintain, but we'd also like to continue to build, continue to grow. Look at some additional challenges like virtual RSUs and those types of things. There's many different aspects of the V2X world that still need investigation and figuring out how do we do things appropriately. So that's our mindset going through this project. The details of our approach are that we are on TxDOT roadways. We're partnered with a number of IOOs, City of Houston, Missouri City, Fort Bend County, College Station. We're integrating transit fleets, emergency vehicles, construction vehicles. Where we need to, we are installing new roadside equipment. We're also enhancing the existing roadside equipment and making sure that those safety and V2X mobility and efficiency messages are getting through to our target audiences. So just a quick recap of the different IOOs that we're working with. I want to really emphasize how important our IOOs are to us on this project. Since we're not an IOO and don't operate or own anything on the roadways, as I said before, we can't do this without our IOO help. So TxDOT is one of the well, it's the largest state highway system in the nation, and there's certainly a very significant amount of travel daily on TxDOT roadways. The challenge that TxDOT has had for quite some time is that there hasn't been a day since November 7th, 2000, that we haven't had at least one fatality on a Texas roadway. So nearly 25 years. So Texas is really trying to lean into this to see if this is a step to getting us towards Vision Zero and making sure that we can increase the safety of the roadways. Texas is also home to numerous autonomous vehicle firms, particularly in the robotaxi and freight arenas. And again, we think that there is a good opportunity for tying together connected vehicles and autonomous vehicles in the future, but first we have to nail the connected vehicle components of everything. City of Houston, fourth largest city in the United States, 7 million plus residents. You know, they have nearly 80,000 intersections themselves, you know, just throughout the overall city of Houston, and their fatalities are up as well. City College Station, you know, growth is approximately 1.2% per year. We've got about 50 square miles, over 100 signalized intersections. Congestion is increasing. Our main roadway in this area that operates like a freeway, it's not technically a freeway, but it's State Highway 6. You know, it's now congested several hours per day, you know, 2-3 hours in the morning and 2-3 hours in the evening in opposite directions, obviously. And they're going to be starting a nearly $700 million expansion of that roadway in the very near future, and that will certainly add to the congestion challenge that this area faces. Missouri City, southwest of you know, the core downtown city of Houston, 80,000 people there. They have a lot of employment centers, and the entertainment district is near them. But they have been very proactive in already deploying V2X technology. So they're a great partner to work with in terms of they already have some information, some installations on the roadways, and some good experience that helps them be a great partner for us. And in Fort Bend County, that's really the same type of situation there in terms of what they've already implemented. Fort Bend County is home to about 1 million people, Yeah, we're not talking, just a couple square miles of space here. When I show you the overall deployment area, it literally covers tens of thousands of square miles. Now, obviously, in the overall cost of the project, we're not going to be able to instrument even a small portion of that. What we are trying to do in our use cases is go through and demonstrate how a broad cross-section of use cases that you're not going very deep in, you're not going to see 100 implementations in each one of our use cases, but you'll see a very broad swath of the use case environment, and that really can help to contribute to the guidebook that we need to develop so that everybody else knows how to do this. Okay, so I've talked already about the 15 different use cases and how important they are. Because we're in College Station, we're on the roadways in between, we're down in Houston, we're down in suburbs of Houston, we have a very diverse set of environments. We also are using both direct and network applications. So again, I'm sure many of you already know this, but just in case, a direct application for V2X is where you have equipment on the side of the road and it's broadcasting that information into the air, and as your vehicle drives through, it receives that information with specialized equipment in the vehicle. In the network version of that, the equipment can be on the side of the road and it can be broadcasting, but it's also sending the information up to the cloud, right? And then what we're doing is we want to showcase how the network version of V2X information can be used to get a much broader distribution of that type of information. And I'll showcase some of the use cases that we're doing network on to really show you why those use cases are unique and really well suited for network applications. But the key that we're doing then with the network applications is we're working with Google to do a development version of Google Maps. Google Maps, just like Apple Maps or any of the other big platforms, they have hundreds of millions of users. Google Maps actually has about 2.5 billion users worldwide. So we are wanting to integrate our network applications into that and really showcase for the USDOT how this information can exist and can be utilized on a much wider distribution beyond just the intersection or the side of the road that you're driving by the pieces of equipment. In our phase 2, we do have a lot more applications that we want to do for vulnerable road users. We would like to add additional fleet vehicles. We've been talking to some of the autonomous companies, some of the trucking companies, and we'd also like to dive into the virtual RSU space. Virtual RSUs are a very interesting component because they, obviously they operate up in the cloud, but they act as if they're down on the side of the road. But you don't have to have the $10,000 or $15,000 worth of equipment at each intersection. It remains to be seen whether you can use a virtual RSU in every application. You do have to think about those safety critical applications that have latency needs to be able to get the information in the right amount of time. But those are some of the things that we'd like to really look at in phase 2. And I keep saying phase 2 because recall the earlier slide when I said we're building foundational, thinking aspirational. So we're building the core components to be able to look at all of these things and make sure that we get that underlying system operating appropriately and providing the information that the nation needs. And then we would like to continue to expand on the capabilities of what we're doing and go into a lot of other areas of essentially research and how all of this comes together. So what you see on the screen there is a graphic just of our overall distribution area, right? So each one of those routes between Bryan, College Station, and Houston are approximately 100 miles. So there's about 300 miles of roadway coverage there. But again, we're not deploying something every mile or every 10 miles or anything like that. There's simply not enough money to do anything along those lines. What we are trying to do is pick out diverse environments within this region of several thousand square miles, put in our 15 use cases, whether it's one example or 100 examples of them, and get the information and figure out how that works into the broader environment of V2X and using traveler information in this manner. So applications in College Station, we have 5 that are in College Station. I'm going to go through each one. Hopefully I won't bore you too much, but I just kind of give you a quick flavor of things. This is all from our concept of operations and our engineering documents. Those documents, I will say, number in the thousands of pages. So obviously in a fairly short webinar and slides, I'm not going to bore you to tears with thousands of pages of documentation, but I'd like to go through the next slides and just try to give you a flavor of what we're trying to do. So SPAT enabled intersection, SPAT of course being signal, phase, and timing. That's probably the core application that most people think about when they think about V2X. So in College Station, we're putting in 35 we're equipping 35 existing traffic signals across 3 major corridors. We're going to distribute the SPAT and MAP messages. We're going to do use them to provide support for the emergency responders and the transit priority. Again, in our future aspiration, we would like to bring in some of the providers that are working on other modes of transportation, such as V2X for bicycles and those types of things. There are a number of folks that are working in innovations in that area, and that is a direct use case. Traffic signal preemption, so you can see obviously there the fire apparatus going through the intersections. Of course, what we're trying to do here is support the emergency vehicle preemption or rail preemption, transit signal priority, transmit the SRM and the SSM messages to do that. And ultimately, we'd like to tie it into the operations center of the university transit system so that we know if a vehicle, a bus, is running on schedule or behind schedule. Obviously, if it's running behind schedule, we'd like to do whatever we can to get it back on schedule. But if it's running on schedule, there's no reason to give it signal priority. That's also a direct use case. So I probably talked a little bit more about this slide or this use case on the last one, but emergency vehicle preemption, transit signal priority, very, very similar in terms of what we're trying to do. Obviously, different sets of vehicles and a different reaction from the traffic signal controller. Every day is a game day is a very interesting use case for us. For those of you who don't know, A&M has a tiny little football stadium, and every Saturday in the fall where we have a game, about 150,000 of our closest friends come in and party with us. And this year we're pretty good, 6-0, and so there's lots of people coming to the games and lots of things going on. For years, A&M has worked with stakeholders across the area, the athletic department, the TxDOT district, the local towns, the fire, police, emergency services, the robo-taxi services, all of those types of things, to staff a control center in the base of Kyle Field there in the picture. Not the control center, the Kyle Field's in the picture. And really use the information that's coming in from all of the different folks involved, all of the different stakeholders to make operational decisions as far as what is what we need to do on the roadways at what time. What we're trying to do with V2X is we are saying, okay, we want to take all of that operational information, we want to turn it into traveler information and distribute it to folks in a network situation. So this is our first use case that we want to bring together into Google Maps. So again, it's a development version of Google Maps. It's not going to be available to everyone, in the next couple of weeks or anything like that. We have to prove out the construct of what we're trying to do. But we're compiling and fusing data from multiple systems and then constructing those TIM messages based on different situations that are occurring. We're also using an AI engine in the cloud for all of our network use cases. So we're using a platform called Vantic, and bringing that information up into the cloud. Vantic acts as the data ingestion point and the fusion point and the transformation point, and then based on everything that we're seeing, it constructs messages in J2735 format and then sends them out again across the network to be picked up by Google Maps so that we can then display them appropriately on Google Maps. And we're working with Google to say, okay, well, for some of the use cases, maybe you just drop a point and geofence around it for a circular radius of 1 mile or something like that. But in other situations, particularly with respect to game day, right? You don't want to alert a northbound driver about a southbound situation on the roads coming in and out of Kyle Field. So there's a lot more nuance there into how you work that particular message distribution. Enhanced highway construction worker safety. This is our great opportunity with our reconstruction of State Highway 6. So in this one, we're going to equip work zone vehicles with portable RSUs. That's a little bit of a different twist. RSUs are typically thought to be stationary on the side of the road, so we're moving into the portable RSU space and then broadcasting that information to vehicles as they come up on the work zone. And a future aspiration there is maybe looking at personal V2X devices to generate different types of warnings and things for the vehicle or for the person, the construction worker, whether that's a vehicle intrusion alert, or it could even be a health alert for the particular user, that their biometrics are saying that they are getting overheated and maybe they need a companion to come over and check on them or something like that. There's all kinds of opportunities there to really protect our colleagues that are building our roadways. All right, so that's the 5 in College Station. Let's go to the 4 on the National Highway System roadway. So incident management, I don't have to explain to anybody what incident management is. What we're doing here is we are going to take the data feed from Houston Transtar initially and be able to broadcast that into the network application, i.e. the Google Maps. So in the future, we'd like to utilize the system with virtual RSUs. We'd like to do more. Actually, that line about providing lane closure, detour, and parking information, that's wrong. That shouldn't be on that slide. I apologize for that. So we'll just move right past that and go into flooding events. For those of you who don't know, Houston obviously has a considerable problem at times with storms and hurricanes and major flooding. The information that I was given at one time is that the entire city of Houston was designed for a rainfall event of no more than 8 inches in 24 hours. Anytime that it exceeds that, or the rate of that exceeds 8 inches per 24 hours, things start to flood. There have been several horrific situations in Houston where people have been on a dark roadway and have driven into something like this. The road they didn't know was open, and bad things happened. So what Houston has been working with stakeholders in the area, including City of Houston and TxDOT and a lot of the surrounding cities for quite some time, to produce a very capable flood sensor system. And there are hundreds of flood sensors now around the Houston area. So we are going to ingest that information and then broadcast the results of that fusion in the cloud, again, to a development version of Google Maps. Now, by this time, you may be asking yourself, like, why are they so hung up on Google Maps? The reason is this. In traveler information today, I can get a text message from something. I can look at 1 or 2 or 3 different apps and get pieces of information. This one, I got to go to a website. This one, I actually have to get an email from. You know, it's not all in one point, all in one, you know, convenient place to get it all uniformly identified as to what I should do. It doesn't interoperate with other types of alerts or anything like that. The user, the driver, has to put that all together. You have to look at a construction schedule. You have to read the signs on the road, you know, belaboring the point. But by moving our network use cases into a development version of Google Maps, we're showcasing how all of this information can be made into a uniform platform, and you know, you can stop having to use 6 different platforms to get 8 pieces of information. That's really the impetus behind the innovation of moving to Google Maps. Planned construction. Now, this is similar to the construction in College Station, but what we're trying to do here is disseminate the different alerts and closure information and queue information that that may take place on those roadways. So that's the line that I said was the bullet in the wrong place. That actually belongs in here. And in this type of situation, we would, in the future, we really want to utilize the virtual RSUs. Think about the capability of putting a virtual RSU out on those 300 miles of roadway, so that at any given point on the roadway, if something was going on, a person could get alerted. That's the beauty of what you know, the cloud can do and what virtual RSUs can do, as opposed to if I had to instrument 300 miles of roadway with an RSU, you know, every 1 mile. That's just an astronomical cost that people simply can't afford. Curb speed warning. I think we've all gone around types of situations like this, or, you know, Texas is famous for its flyovers. I cringe every time I have to drive on one. Some of them in Houston are really high. But anyhow, you know, if we take in the information and we fuse it together with the weather and the geometry, we can say, hey, don't be going so fast, you're at a rollover situation. Now, we all know that, you know, the physics of a heavy vehicle rollover depend on whether it's cubed out or you know, weighted out, or those types of things, where the center of gravity is, all of that. We're not trying to get into that level of detail right here, because the vehicle isn't, vehicles aren't equipped to send that information out to the roadside yet. Maybe in the future they are, but again, this is another one where we would like to blanket the system with virtual RSUs, so that any of those spaces, we could take that infusion of data that we do readily have and make suggestions of you know, what the curve speed should be. Okay, applications in Houston. There are 6 applications in Houston, and on those, we're doing, sorry, lost my place. We're doing the roadway flood warning. So again, that's very similar in terms of what we talked about before. We're doing Houston SPAT-enabled intersections. That is very similar to what we did before, but we're just doing it within a different environment. And you know, continuing to broadcast the SPAT and map and all of those types of things. Sorry. And then support applications like red light violation runnings and signal phase countdowns and those types of things. In Houston, we're going to work more on kind of the right turn on red vulnerable road user protection to make sure that we have detection systems that are identifying the VRUs and then broadcast that information to equipped vehicles to warn the drivers. Very similar red light violation warning. Use use the vehicle speed, distance, and SPAT data to determine the potential of a violation, and then broadcast warnings to both the violating traffic and potentially impacted cross traffic. Wrong way driving. A lot of cities have a challenge with wrong way driving situations. It could be from a variety of different reasons. San Antonio is well known to have an uptick in wrong way driving incidents on a couple particular freeways right about 2 a.m. in the morning after the bars close. So there are all kinds of human factors that influence this. What we're trying to do here is get the information feed from the existing wrong way driving systems, and then again disseminate to the development version of Google Maps. And again, here the future aspiration would be to blanket the system with the virtual RSUs so that we can get a much wider coverage. Emergency vehicle response time and safety. Again, this is going to be down in another jurisdiction of our IOOs, but it's very similar to what we're trying to do in College Station, just a different corridor, different environment. Different situations. Even if it's the same use case, it's going to operate differently with different levels of traffic, different signal systems, and different environments. One of the things that we have to do for USDOT is to go through and demonstrate all of this. So with 15 different use cases, we figured it could take quite some time. So we tried to introduce this in the form of concepts. So concept one is we're going to look at the connected intersections and everything that they should be doing. So you can see the use cases there. It's the SPAT-enabled intersections, the right turn on red, the red light violation. Concept two, looking at preemption and priority. Concept three, looking at enhanced safety, and then concept four, the enhanced traveler information, and pulling all of those things together to demonstrate into Google Maps what's going on there. So, in terms of our status, we are continually evolving our system documentation. We have about 90% of the equipment in-house. I guesstimate that about 35% of it is installed. We have equipped 100 buses of the university bus fleet, and we have equipment at 35 intersections in College Station. We do not have all of those intersections up and running on V2X yet, but we do have the equipment installed. We're developing the map messages, and the first set of intersections are up and running. It's just not all 35. And we've given multiple operational tours to TxDOT over the last few days because they were here for what they call the Transportation Short Course, which is kind of like a mini TRB in-state. Our OEM vehicles are in process. Our Google Maps development is in process. And we've also set up a fully equipped test intersection. We have the luxury here at the A&M campus to be situated on an old airfield, and we have runways and spaces that we use from that area to replicate driving courses and those types of things on the roadway. So we have a fully equipped test intersection with V2X technologies and the ability to do all kinds of testing on one of parts of the runway. So what are our next steps? Well, we still have documentation to do. We need to continue working with our OEMs and get them to develop the user interface that's going to be in the vehicles. We've got equipment to continue and install. And then the fourth line is probably the most important one. We need to test, and then test again. and then several hundred times after that to make sure that we understand exactly what's happening, look at all the edge cases, figure out this. We need to do lessons learned. We need to understand how to help people in the future on procurement and installation and all of those different types of things. The scenarios that I just walked you through, we have to do that testing and showcasing for USDOT. There's also interoperability testing that we need to do for things. What we can't have is we look to deploy a national system, we can't have a situation where a message that comes out, a SPAT message that comes out in Utah is different than a SPAT message that comes out in College Station, which might be different than a SPAT message that comes out in Georgia or Florida or Arizona. They have to be consistent. We can't have thousands of different types of message standards out there for vehicle manufacturers to adhere to and to understand where they are and which standard to use. So that's a big part of the interoperability testing. We also have to get started on our before data collection. So we have a robust set of performance metrics for each one of these use cases that I talked about. And we've got to do the before data collection so that we understand what our baseline is. And then during that year afterwards, we do the post installation data collection so that we can see if we've made any changes. If I look forward to our roadmap to success, well, obviously we want to implement the 15 use cases, test them. We want to pass the phase 1 gate. We want to be able to show the benefits. We want to demonstrate other aspects or the impact of other parameters such as communication and latency. Obviously, we need to keep our IO partners very, very happy since we don't own or operate any roadways. We need to be fiscally responsible. There is a cap to this project in terms of the financial funding that's available from USDOT, and we want to meet or exceed all of our requirements for the entire project, as well as the dollar match that we need to. We're also looking at this as helping us to develop longer term partnerships and a future research basis. And then I'll repeat again, think aspirational, but deploy foundational. People also ask me what keeps me up at night, and honestly, it's everything. But on this project, I want to make sure that we're providing the right vision. We're finishing all the documentation. We're getting things installed. We're doing that testing. That phase 1 gate check is going to be here before we know it in March. Worried about money, and then addressing that long-term operations and maintenance clause that is more challenging for us than the other grantees. So with that, Kevin, I think I've gone through everything that I need to. I think it's time to open it up for questions, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, it's perfectly fine with me, Bob. We have a few questions in the Q&A pod, and I'd like to remind attendees that if they have any questions, please feel free to enter them in the Q&A pod, and we will go through some of them right now. And I'd like to start with this one because I think it's a good foundational one that was asked. If you could give us an example and explain what a virtual RSU is.
Okay, so a virtual RSU is basically just an RSU that lives in the cloud. So essentially, it's a geospatially located reference point on the roadway system, and what you're doing is you're using a cloud computing system, Amazon, Google, whatever you want to call it, and you're distributing the information to people that are passing that point. So you're basically matching two GPS coordinates. So I've got my virtual RSU here. I got my vehicle going through here. When I come into this space, this system is going to broadcast that information to me so that I know what is going on in that particular space.
All right, thank you for that explanation. I think I want to hit on this one next here. They kind of ask about the dependence on Google Maps and distribution of information to motorists utilizing Google Maps. If you can elaborate on a partnership or collaboration you have with them regarding their ingestion and broadcast of the information.
Okay, so Kevin, can I see the questions at all?
I think so. I think you can pull them up.
Okay. Just okay. Oh, there they are. Okay, got it. All right, so let's explore what we're doing with Google Maps and why we're doing it. Again, what we're trying to do with Google Maps is we are trying to demonstrate that this type of information can be useful far beyond just a point on the road with physical equipment on the side of the road. You know, much like you would want to alert drivers of a queuing situation or a congestion situation miles ahead of when it's actually happening, or the fact of a lane closure long before you get there. That's the type of situations that we're trying to do with Google Maps. So we're taking those particular use cases, we are processing them in the international standards, developing those messages, and then Google is developing the development version of Google Maps to ingest and display those. So right now, many of you probably use Google Maps, or you use other things, Waze or Apple Maps or something. They all operate very similarly, but you can go down a road and it'll say there are 10 reports of police ahead. Are they still there? Or there's an alert about objects on the roadway in 1 mile, those types of things. But we're trying to add to those types of alerts, right? There's a flooding 1 mile ahead. There's a flood situation 1 mile ahead on the roadway that you are driving on. Don't go there. Those types of things. Does that help answer the question?
I believe so.
Okay.
I think yes, they did. They responded yes. Thank you for that. There was another question that I think opens up to a broader topic, and their question focused on like EVs, but they did ask if V2X could be used for, say, navigation assistance to an EV charger, or to facilitate payment at a EV charger.
The short answer is probably yes. V2X is a very extensible capability, so there are certainly mechanisms to continue to evolve the standards, develop additional types of messaging, additional use cases. I think this is not okay, we've got 12 different types of messages and we're done, we're walking away, job accomplished, mic drop. This is we're going to continue to develop information. We're going to get the community is going to continue to evolve the standards, continue to evolve the messaging set, and continue to try to make it better. Okay. I did want to go back, Kevin. I saw one question that said, why is the use of Google Maps considered V2X? That's an important point, and I'm glad it was raised. When we come out of our V2X or our AI engine on the cloud, we are transmitting information in SAE 2735 format. Okay, Google Maps is going to receive and ingest that into from J2735 format. So the transmission of the message between two players in the ecosystem is according to standards. It is according to the message sets that have already been developed and approved. So that's why it's V2X.
I did want to also, there was another question following up on the Google Maps question on how are you solving the refresh delay in Google Maps with respect to sending alerts to drivers?
That's part of the development. We're just starting that portion with Google Maps now, so we don't really know if that's going to significantly impact us or not. And it may very well impact us differently in different areas with different types of coverage. So that's a great question, but it's one of the ones that we just don't know at this point in time.
A lot of questions coming in related to it. Another one is asking about if regarding an international standard that Google ingests. And I think you mentioned J2735, but they ask about ITIS codes and J2540/2.
Yeah, so I'll be honest, I'm not completely knowledgeable about all of the different SAE-J standards, but yes, we're using the ITIS codes to construct the different message sets, and we have a complete accounting, so to speak, with USDOT on all of the different standards that are being incorporated across the different use cases and the different types of equipment and all of that. So I can't answer to the different standards that that are popping up onto the screen. That's not my depth point. But bottom line is we're using standards. We're not just creating our own message sets.
In relation to, again, I guess one more question about Google Maps, and someone did ask why not use something open source like OpenStreetMaps.
It's really a decision that comes down to how widely distributed a particular product is, how widely it's used. Google Maps has an installed base across the world of nearing 3 billion people, currently about 2.5. So we wanted to demonstrate in something that had an incredible reach. If you asked 15 or 20 of your neighbors, probably not many of them are going to say that, oh yes, I use OpenStreetMaps to do my navigation. Not that that's bad or that the question's bad or anything. It's just we went with the platform that is most prevalent out there to demonstrate how to get this to a broader range of people.
Someone did ask if the over-network approach uses SCMS or another form of security.
Great question. Part of the challenge with SCMS currently is that it does not have security certificates for network messages. It only has it for direct messages. The SCMS companies are extremely interested in making sure that network messages are certified just as much as the direct messages are. And they've talked to us about starting that process and in phase 2. So that's another aspirational aspect of our phase 2 work that we'd like to get to.
Here's another interesting one. The question is asking about if there's work being done with communications between 911 operators and drivers involved in crashes, if their car is still operable, if it can be relocated away or out of high-speed roadway areas.
Okay, so that's an interesting question, and there's a lot of different parts to that. Texas now does have a move over law, or basically a clearance law. A lot of different jurisdictions in Texas have had that for a while, but now there is a state law that says if it's a minor enough collision and you can still drive the vehicle, get it off the road, then you can do what you need to do. So there is a certain part of that. The screen just went off. The question just went off my screen. There's a certain part of that is being addressed from, the driving perspective, but there isn't any reason to say that as V2X continues to develop that, all these different types of messages and concepts and ideas couldn't be worked into the overall, ecosystem of what we're trying to do.
Kind of related, but there's a question about if you're in discussions or communicating with OEMs about ingesting network V2X within their vehicles, since most vehicles don't have direct V2X radios built in, but often a lot of the newer cars do have cellular radios, can communicate over network V2X.
Right. So the short answer to that is we're not asking our OEM partners to program in for the network use cases at this time. We want to demonstrate the efficacy of bringing that information to the larger crowd, and we're doing that via Google Maps. In the future, we can talk, if that works, we can talk to, the OEMs and, talk to them about ingesting network use cases in addition to direct. Right now, what we have worked out with our OEM partners is that all of the vehicles will of course be able to run Android Auto and therefore do the Google Maps and get that information as well.
There's a question here about if you would consider distributing traveler information using probe data providers instead of crowdsourced data providers.
So distributing traveler information, that one's I'm trying to figure out what the emphasis point of that question is. So obviously we collect traveler information using probe data and different crowdsourced data, but the word distributing is throwing me off a little bit in terms of what the contributor is really asking. Maybe they can write in a clarification statement for me. My brain's not working, I guess.
No, I think that's fair. If they could provide elaborate on their question, I guess if they meant by distributing, if they meant like information would be sent back out to the probe data providers. But there is another question here about the AI platform you referenced, and if they said provide some more color, but would you like to elaborate a little on the AI platform?
Okay, so I want to go back to the disclaimer first off and say that this is not a DOT standard or endorsement or anything else. The AI platform that we're using is called Vantic, VANTIQ. They are an AI engine that has incredible capabilities. It's got generative AI built in. It's got all kinds of different capabilities and relationships that it can build in a low code, no code situation. So it was just a very ideal point for us to centralize all of the network information and the network adjustments that we had to make to information coming in, rather than, well, for every day is a game day, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to write this program and then I'm going to put it on a cloud server somewhere. We can do all of that within one platform up on the cloud currently. So that's why we chose that. And there are other cloud platforms that do similar things. There's DIRC, there's Beam, there's a number of these types of folks. I just did the evaluation and chose the one that, I thought was best for our use cases and what we needed.
Okay, I know there are a few questions here, and if Bob, you want to take a look at the last few, I was just going to mention the first one on this list that we still have mentions that SAE J3217 is a V2X fee collection standard. So I'm assuming that's more for tolling or maybe like say parking payments and things of that nature.
Yeah, so I'm not familiar with that one, but we do not have any use cases that are involving that at this point in time. So we wouldn't be working with that particular standard. But the great thing about V2X is that it is able to be evolved. It can apply to a whole bunch of different things. There are people today that want to apply it to border situations and border traffic and all kinds of different types of things. Our colleagues in Maricopa County, you may have heard on the last webinar, they're looking to do actually monetization of freight priority. So there's all kinds of different capabilities that exist within the system. We just have to continue to develop and deploy it and make sure that it's robust.
Well, I think that's about all the questions that I think can be addressed. Bob, do you see any that you'd like to address from the open ones here?
So the one that just came in says, what is the reason for using J2735 format for Google Map? That's absolutely right. It could be ingested in a different format, but if we're trying to showcase J2735 V2X standards, we want to transmit the information in that standard message set, because otherwise we have to take we have to take one source of information formatted in 4 different mannerisms and send it out to 4 different providers. If we're all using the same thing, they can ingest it at the same time and everybody's using exactly the same thing. So that's the reason why we're being so cautious about putting a message out in J2735, transmitting it in J2735, even if it when it will get decoded and implemented in Google Maps in their native message format, it needs to be transmitted between those 2 endpoints in a standard messaging format. Thank you for the compliment about this was a good webinar. I appreciate that.
A couple of them have come in.
Awesome.
Well, I guess that's I think that's all the questions that we have that have come in. Bob, do you want to close us out here with the final contact slide?
Sure. Let me go back to that. Make sure I'm presenting still.
I'd like to say thank you for everyone who put in questions during this Q&A session. It was great. Thank you.
Oh, there we are. Sorry. Oh, for crying out loud. All right, I'm getting there, folks. There. That's our contact information. So my AOR at USDOT is Kingsley Azubiki, and his email address is there, and my email address is out there as well. So if you have any other additional questions, I'd be happy to work with you and see if I can get them answered.
All right, thank you everyone for joining us today. Again, this webinar, the slide deck and the recording will be available on the ITS America website within the next few days. Thank you, Bob, for the fantastic presentation and the fantastic Q&A portion. And thank you everyone for joining, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you all having me here.